how to avoid frostbite and hypothermia. That's our topic today, and I'll be getting into gear, specifically what kind of clothing to wear. But first, a real life story. Hiker recounts horrific struggle for survival on icy New Hampshire ridge. So I'll put the link in the description, and I'll read this excerpt from an Associated Press news article. Merrimack, New Hampshire. 3 months in the hospital gave James Osborne plenty of time to reflect on the mistakes that cost him a limb and a friend his life. In February, Osborne, 37, and Lawrence Fredrickson kept hiking on Haystack Mountain even after the temperature dropped from the mid-20s to low teens or single digits in about 2 minutes. They pressed on toward Mount Lincoln, and then the wind changed and they got caught on an exposed ridge. Quote, "It was like somebody flipped a switch and a fan came on. The next thing you knew, we were standing in 70 miles per hour wind," Osborne recalled. They didn't have the gear that could have saved Fredrickson's life or spared Osborne from serious injury. No sleeping bags, no cell phones, no matches or materials to start a fire. "We were so ill prepared," Osborne said. Let's stop for a moment. Just say when they realized they didn't have much gear and they went above the tree line, and it's like somebody's flipping a switch and you got 70 mile per hour wind suddenly, then you turn back. Would have been a whole different story if they turned back. And this story is from 2008, so I'm trying to be sensitive in case relatives or loved ones or the survivor himself is watching this. I'm trying to be sensitive, but 2008, they've had some time to heal. I hope they have healed, I mean emotionally. But my purpose for videos like this is to help other people, so they learn something, they're warned, and it doesn't happen to them. So they should have turned around. Not blaming anyone, not guilting someone. I mean, a man lost his life here. It's a serious subject. I'm not flippantly talking about it. Just telling you, if you were in you shouldn't get in a situation like that. Shouldn't go above the tree line without gear. But if you did, and it's like someone's flipping a switch and there's 70 mile per hour winds, turn back. Okay, I'll keep reading. "We were so ill prepared," Osborne said. Fredrickson, 55, of Sutton, died from exposure on the trail the next day as he and Osborne tried to hike back to safety after weathering the night in a narrow cave. "If we had sleeping bags, we could have spent 3 days in there. We had enough munchy type food and we had enough water," Osborne said. At daybreak, they dug themselves out of the cave. Frostbite began to appear on their faces. Time began to blur. Okay, so this is commentary by the reporter after speaking to the survivor, right? But the report we have here is that time began to blur. Okay, so it said that frostbite had begun to appear on their faces. Seems to me like they must have had hypothermia from the description here also. And hypothermia, as it gets more serious, it starts to more severely affect the internal organs. And one of the most delicate organs, one of the most profoundly affected, is the brain. So, I mean, if there was a warm observer somewhere, or someone looking down from satellite, right, his time wouldn't be blurring. Their time seemed to blur because hypothermia quickly affects the brain. Then you're not making the right decisions anymore. You can't think clearly. So you're having physical problems, you're having mental issues. It's a trap. Don't go in there. Turn back. They should have turned back when they knew they didn't have the right gear and they're stepping into that wind tunnel. Got read on. All these surreal things started happening, Osborne said. Well, not really, again. It seems so surreal because of here. Brain's getting too cold. Quote, Fred's hands got so cold he lost movement. He had gloves on and the wind would catch them and pull the gloves off. Osborne took off his backpack to get out an extra pair of gloves for Fredrickson, and then couldn't put his backpack on again because his arms are too cold to move backwards. About halfway back, this little haystack mountain, Fredrickson's eyes had closed from frostbite. They stumbled along, Osborne in the lead, with Fredrickson's hand on his shoulder. Okay, this is terrible here. Can you imagine that? Having frostbite on your face to the point where your eyelids don't work and your eyelids are stuck closed and you're being led along blind by a friend. What if something like that happened and you didn't have a friend? You're just out there blind. Is it scary? Well, I mean, just trying to warn people and show you the severity here. There's only so much that the human body can do. You got to prepare for it. You got to have the right gear, know what to bring, know how to use it. Then Fredrickson fell behind. Quote, at one point I looked back and he was curled up in a fetal position on his right side. I walked back to him, Osborne said. Osborne told him, Fred, you gotta get up, you gotta get up. As I walked away, I had this conscious thought. I'm 36 years old, and this is how I die. Strangely enough, I was at peace with myself. And I'll end there. Again, the link's in the description. You can read the whole article from Associated Press. The survivor lost his right leg. He was fitted with an artificial leg, and doctors had to rebuild his left foot. And here's this moral issue here. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying, putting myself in a similar situation. I don't want to get there. I want to make better choices, not get to that situation. But we all can make mistakes. And weather can come in quick. Bad, cold weather can come in quick. And I'm just trying to empathize, put myself in that person's position or a situation like that. And my friend apparently is in the last stages of hypothermia. He's all curled up in the fetal position. Tell him to get up, get up. He's not getting up. And I can still walk a little bit. Do I stay with him and die? Or do I try to keep walking? Leave him? Got to leave him behind if I'm going to keep walking. And likely die. He was saved, but in this sort of situation, the person's usually not going to make it. He did make it, thank God. You know, I'm thankful that one person made it out. But if I was there, I'd be thinking, well, even if I keep walking, probably not going to make it. I mean, he was rescued. He didn't self-rescue. He didn't walk all the way to safety. You know, so it's a moral dilemma. You know, but I would probably keep walking, thinking, well, he's probably going to die. Me too. But if I keep walking and I do reach someone, I can send help back. It's unlikely they're going to be able to save him, but maybe they can. I'm giving him a chance. I'm giving myself a chance. But then again, a person might think, well, this is probably it. Rescuers find me however far down the trail, or rescuers find me here. If I die here, I'm not dying alone. I mean, these are serious topics, you know. I'm just saying, somebody might think that. And if they find one of us, they find both of us. So maybe I'll stay here. It was a moral dilemma, you know, but he didn't abandon his friend. You know, that's what I'd be thinking in the back of my mind if it was me. I'm just saying if it was me. But if I did leave, it would be to get help also for the other person. But you got to think about these things. Think about it now and know the risk. One more real life account. This one's shorter. This one is from the comments on the channel, Gregory LaPointe. Once on one of my annual hikes out Mount Washington in New Hampshire, I started showing signs of early onset frostbite on my fingers. And this was in mid-August. August. It was about 90 degrees at the trailhead. Is this sinking in? This is what we have to know about the presidential range in New Hampshire and basically any high mountain above the tree line. It was about 90 degrees at the trailhead, and by the time I was above the tree line on the top of the ridge, the wind was howling and had to be close to freezing. Temperature difference from low altitude and high altitude. The wind in the presidential range can be brutal. It should not be underestimated. I'd packed extra t-shirts as I sweat a lot, extra socks, a sweatshirt, plenty of fluids, but I neglected to bring gloves. Big mistake. I love the mountains in New Hampshire, but a person definitely needs to prepare in advance. And there is no shame in the event you have to turn around. Starting to get over your head, turn around. If you don't, hypothermia starts to set in. It affects your brain first. And if you lose the ability to think clearly, you might do any number of crazy things. Make a bad decision or do something irrational that you never would have done except for this isn't working right. So now I'd like to get into how cold affects the human body. And the memory aid I'm going to give you is cold, wet wind, which could even be a phrase. You can imagine a cold, wet wind blowing through. But it's a memory aid. There's three different things we're going to talk about: cold, wet, and wind. So cold air temperatures, you need to have the proper gear, namely the clothing, with you in order to deal with it, or you can get serious injury or you might not even make it back. Human body needs gear to deal with the cold. It just does. Okay, so then if there's wet, it's worse, and then if there's wind, it's even worse than that. You don't want to get wet. You need something to protect you from the rain or snow, because snow lands on your clothes, your body heat's probably going to melt it, and then you're wet. You also don't want to get wet from sweat buildup. So you need to learn layering. So cold, wet, and there's wind. If there's, let's say, 0 degrees Fahrenheit in a certain place and a strong wind, like a 50 mile per hour wind, I think that's around the equivalent of negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And your body can't deal with that for very long. You're just going to die. You have to learn to protect yourself from these things. But if you get wet, whether it's perspiration on your body that the wind's blowing against, or rain or snow that melted on, if you're wet in cold air temperatures and there's a wind blowing on you, then that's the worst. And you can see this principle if you look into how your refrigerator and your freezer are designed, or the air conditioner in your house, the air conditioner in your car. There's something in there called an evaporator. So let's say there's water on your body. As that evaporates, it has a cooling effect, just like your freezer. Okay, so there's water on your body, the wind blows against it, and it's just really tough to survive something like that in cold air temperatures. So what do you need? You need insulation insulating layers. And I don't like one big, huge, fat, puffy coat, because that's like all or nothing. And also, the one layer, if it gets soaked with sweat, it's soaked. I want a bunch of layers and a base layer that I can change, that, like my t-shirt gets soaked with sweat. I can take that, hang it out on a limb to dry, or tie it on my backpack as I'm hiking to dry, and it'll actually dry in that wind that we're talking about. Or, if you're really smart, you can have extra undergarments in your pack, you know, in some sort of dry bag or plastic bag to stay warm, stay dry, right? And then different layers, and you can choose what kind of layers you need. You're hiking up a mountain, you get warmer, you have less layers. You can have one layer that's open if you're really warm. Then at the top, you're getting cold, you can put more on. You can regulate your temperature as needed. Okay, so a bunch of different layers for insulation. That's your protection against the cold. Again, it's cold, wet wind. So you also don't want to get wet. So this particular jacket is, in my mind, similar to Gore-Tex. The brand is Craghoppers, and the model is Aqua Dry. This particular one's old, so it's not available anymore. I don't think it's not made, but there's, I believe, very similar ones on their website. But there's all kinds of Gore-Tex and waterproof jackets out there. But just be careful, because in the store, you're buying a jacket. A lot of them look like they would repel water. It's a satiny finish. It looks like it's nylon. Looks like it would repel water. Okay. But a lot of them just don't. It rains on you wet. Some snow gets on you. Body hits, heat melts it, and you're wet. So I wanted actually to be rated as waterproof from the company. Before I go up a mountain, I want to like go out in my driveway or my backyard or something, or on a little walk in a park or something, and get it rained on or whatever, and make sure it actually is waterproof. That's me. I want to be careful. But this one served me well. Was a little bit pricey, so I bought one used. Looked like it was basically unworn. Maybe somebody worn it once or twice. That's an option. There's a lot of different options out there. Just so you want some sort of top layer that's waterproof, water resistant, and also blocks the wind. Not just the top of your body, not just a jacket, but also the pants. You want some sort of windbreaker and water resistant pants. And boots as well. You need proper boots. That's a whole different topic. But I just want to say for now, you want waterproof boots, insulated, and not ones that look like something you're going to be wearing in your house. You know, some people don't like the big blocky boots. They think they're hard to walk in. Well, that's what you need. You need actual winter boots. You know, some sort of waterproof material. At least the lowers. I like the lowers to be like a rubber or a synthetic rubber, something like that. Something actually impermeable, waterproof. And I don't want it to be ankle high. I want it to have some sort of shaft going up that I can tie. Because you're going through, if you go through deep snow and you have like an ankle cut boot, or God forbid a sneaker, you just lose them. Now you're barefoot in that sort of situation, and it happens to people again and again. They're trying to wear some sort of low-cut trail runner shoe or sneaker or something and go up above the tree line. It's crazy. I mean, in the winter, in my mind, it's crazy. So we need to talk about these things. Okay, with the proper insulation, now there's less risk from frostbite. And I'm not a scientist. This doesn't come from scientific studies. I'm not a medical doctor. This comes from spending half a century in the woods, no exaggeration, and getting cold injuries and just being there. Okay, so if I'm properly insulated, my core, then there'll be blood going to my extremities, and that has the effect of warming up my extremities, my face, my fingers, my feet, you know, my hands. If I start to get cold in my core, because I don't have the proper insulation, or there's too much wind blowing on me, or I got wet or whatever, if my core, my body core starts to get cold, then the body reacts to that by drawing blood away from the extremities, my face, my hands, etc. Your body can do that. I mean, you can talk to an actual doctor, you can explain the process to you, but I know that it's true. Your body withdraws blood when it gets cold from the extremities. It's trying to save your life. It's trying to protect the organs. That's why it does that. But the effect is that now that warming blood isn't getting to your extremities, and now you're more susceptible to frostbite. At least that's what I believe, and that's how it's played out in my own life. And just as an aside, while we're on this sort of topic, is that some people think that drinking hard alcohol helps with helps guard off hypothermia or frostbite, when in fact it does the opposite. Okay, this is what alcohol does. Your body, in an attempt to save your life, is drawing the blood to your core and withdrawing the blood from your extremities. You drink that hard alcohol, which I don't, but let's say you did, and you feel this flush in your face. Well, it's because those blood vessels are relaxing, and now the blood's rushing back to your face. But now the cold is cooling that blood that's in your extremities, and that cooler blood goes back to your core, and your body was trying to save your life, and now you've like done yourself a lot of harm. So alcohol on the trail when you're cold, it's not warming you up, it's putting you at risk of dying. Okay, hate to be blunt, but it's just, don't do it. I see that myth again and again and again on the internet, people saying it. Yeah, you get that warm feeling. What happens next? Well, the cold air temperature cools down the blood, and now you're much, much worse off. So don't do that. So, as far as frostbite, if I can keep my core warm, at least try as much as is possible in whatever conditions, then I'm better off. But still, at some temperature, 0 degrees would be too low a temperature. At some low temperature and at some speed of the wind, I really shouldn't have any exposed skin. I can get away with it now. I'm sitting kind of in a ravine. I mean, it's not all that cold, it's just in the 40s. So I can get away with exposed skin. But if it was 0 degrees, I was above the tree line, there's wind, I couldn't have exposed skin like this. You got to cover any exposed skin with something. It doesn't necessarily need to be expensive in my mind. Here's my Walmart hat. At least it's new, it's not ratty. Just $5 or $6, whatever that was. Walmart hat. This is actually from the Dollar Tree. I'm missing the days when it was a true Dollar Tree with true dollar store, things being $1. Now basically everything's $1.25. But here's a neck gaiter from the Dollar Tree. I believe it's polyester. I'm not going to be able to talk for a second. Even has a cord with a cord lock so I can cinch it. Big difference right there. And this hood is adjustable. Well, I could cinch this down even more if I wanted to, but I'll show you something. If I'm not facing the wind, it's not a true snorkel hood. I've seen some the way the snorkel's way out here where you're looking at a periscope, but it's got a little bit of that effect. I think this is also a Walmart score, mossy oak I think, and this has a cord that's a stretch cord with a cord lock. And this wasn't much. After hunting season and after Christmas, a lot of this goes on clearance, right? Few bucks, maybe $3. And they have hunting in mind, I think that's why it's camouflage. Maybe they're thinking turkey hunting, I'm not sure. But this is a nice, I kind of call this polar fleece. I think it's polyester. Feels very nice, very warm. One downside of the Gore-Tex and this particular jacket, Aqua Dry, whatever they're calling it, a little bit crinkly. So a lot of times I don't wear it filming because I think it's crinkly in the microphone. I don't like to annoy people. You'd also have to think about that if you're hunting. And that's insulated, but it's not super fat, puffy, huge insulated. It's just like, for a winter jacket, I would call that kind of thin, but that's what I want. That way I can layer up. So underneath it, I have this military jacket liner. I think from the M51s, on the M1951s. And then someone's added these buttons. It has buttonholes. It was meant to button in the jacket, but it's just on eBay, I think, years ago, and somebody already sewed the buttons on for me. And this was practically new for not much. And it's old school, just polyester fill. I think this is a nylon or the polyester fill, but very light. But for the little weight, it's giving you a lot of warmth. So that's a tip. I'm not the only one. Not the only one providing that tip on the internet. It's well known. But there's still quite a bit on eBay and such, and not expensive. Here's another choice for a jacket liner. And this one, again, another Walmart store. That must be my happy place, Walmart, huh? And this is an inexpensive brand. It's a packable jacket, packs into its own pocket. Swiss gear. It's the Army olive drab green, I would say, but looks a little bit more civilian, I'd say, a little bit more tapered, but very, very similar. Very similar. This one will zip up a little higher. All has zip instead of buttons, and zips up a little higher. Doesn't look quite as weird as a standalone jacket. That's another option. You see this a lot of my videos, I think. Now I'd like to talk about gloves. I got my fingerless gloves. You like those? Those are just gloves from the Dollar Tree. Cheap $1.25 gloves. Touch screen. They had fingers on them, and the index finger is supposed to be able to be used with a touch screen. I just cut the fingers off because I've been known to lose things, and just work well. I think it's, I forget, some sort of synthetic material. But you know, I'm using camera equipment and such, or if I'm bushcrafting, I'm doing things, throwing a knife. It's just harder with a big, huge, bulky glove. So I wear these whenever possible, and then got a mitten, and forget the brand of these. That's the logo. Had these for, I don't know if it's been a decade, more than that, and that they have a wool insulation in them, but not huge, puffy. I don't like huge puffy gloves personally because they're water resistant, but if they get wet, then it just takes that much longer to dry out. These I can turn them inside out and they dry relatively quick. And if I need more insulation, then I just have some sort of liner inside there. And a lot of times I wear a glove. I might wear a glove that is insulated, just not a hugely insulated glove. But if my hands get cold in a glove, personally, I find it like really hard to warm it up. I would rather have my hand in a mitten, and if I'm not using my hands, I don't have to have my thumb in there. I can have my thumb in with all my other fingers, and it just seems to warm up so much faster. And here's something that's absolutely wonderful. Hot Hands hand warmers. Put one of these in each mitten. Yeah, they work with gloves, but in my mind, just mittens are so much better. So if I'm going to be climbing a mountain in cold weather, okay, have gloves. That's fine. Wear gloves. Have some mittens in my pack, and also some of these. And I don't want to absolutely depend on these. Like, these have to work. I'm getting into trouble. You know, I want to have other options, other possibilities, because these can fail. You want to feel them before you head out. If there's anything solid in there, then it's bad. If it's soft and you can feel the granules, then it's probably good. The test isn't infallible, but if there's nothing hard in there, it's probably good. And those just feel wonderful, especially since I have some age on me now, and you know, really been beating up my hands for decades and paying the price now. Feels really good on the old joints. Alright, so our memory aid is cold, wet wind. Imagine a cold, wet wind going through. So you want to protect your skin, cover your skin. It's cold temperatures and there's a wind blowing. And one really good thing to bring with you is a bandana. Bring a bunch of bandanas. And there's actually the extra large bandanas you can get here and there. I believe this one's from Hobby Lobby. And I realize this isn't going to give you much insulation, but makes a world of difference in my opinion. I mean, I've used bandanas a lot with motorcycle riding. You know, I go out and it's below freezing. I'm going 40, 50 miles an hour, sometimes faster than that, sometimes 65. And bare face versus covered skin's a lot better. A lot better. And then, you know, real life, let's say you're on a mountain, there's snow blowing, this is getting wet, well later it freezes, or even just your breath. You know, get all ice in my beard. I have this up, I'm breathing through it. The moisture in my breath freezes this solid. Okay, so it's not the most pleasant thing, whether it's a polar fleece, you know, face covering or a bandana, what it is. It freezes solid. Got this ice wall. Okay, not real pleasant. However, having this ice wall up is blocking the wind. It's still helping a lot. It's not useless. It's good to have. And there's just so many uses for a bandana. I mean, you have a red one. Now it's a signaling device. Like in our first story, they climbed in that snow cave, and the way it happened in their case is that in the morning they were conscious, able to get out of there. But another possibility is you go in the snow cave trying to save your life. Something happens, you're unconscious or injured, can't get out, or you're just not getting out for a while. Searchers can walk right past you and never see you. It'd take a miracle for them to peek into a snow cave and see the end of your foot or whatever. You know, you crawl into something, but let's say you tie this on a stick or a limb, you know, in front of the snow cave. Now you got a flag. I mean, I'd hate to part with it, you know. It'd be a tough decision. I'd want this because I want every bit of insulation I can have. So maybe I'd cut a strip, I don't know, but still have this out in the wind. Now I'm huddled in the cave and I got this signaling device, even maybe blowing in the wind with zero extra effort on my part. Is just there. You know, I could even leave bits of this so they could maybe be following my trail, give me more of a chance to be rescued. I mean, there's just so many millions of uses for a bandana, but one, believe it or not, works for me. You know, you can try it. I think that's going to be it for today, guys. Obviously, I haven't covered everything. I think I've covered quite a bit, and I think that's enough for now. I've given you the memory aid, the cold, wet wind blowing through will give me 2 real life stories. And I really thank you for joining me. I ask you to please leave a comment. And I'll catch you again next Thursday, 9 p.m. God bless you. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Matthew 6:34.